taxpayers and citizens of this county expect, in my opinion, the county commissioners to, particularly the county judge and the commissioner that serves on the board. I realize you don't have a vote, but you have an influence on the board of the hospital. The taxpayers and citizens expect the county to do the best job they can at monitoring what's going on at the hospital. Now, in connection with this election, the CEO of the hospital put out his information on what the loss was in the current year. I would point out that the year end is September 30th, 2008. To my knowledge, on February 22nd or whatever this is, there is still no audit report issued. Therefore, there's nothing to back up or support what the CEO has told the public. If I was in the audit business for a long time, and if I didn't get something out within 5.5 months, I would be fired. I don't know why it's not out, but it would support the contention of the CEO that the loss of $800,000 was there. I have not seen any numbers to even come close to that. The second question I have is of the CEO and of you guys who have overall supervision was the allowance for bad debts at the end of the previous fiscal year big enough, or did we dump a bunch of bad debts into the current year in order to make it look bad? I had to make a jerk out of myself to get the records that I got, and I still don't have them all. But I had to make a jerk out of myself. I've never filed a Freedom of Information Act thing before. But I would put it this way: any records that come into the hands of the representatives of this commission deserve to be county records and should be filed at the county records with the county clerk. That's appropriate, not in a stack 5 feet high in the county judge's office. CEO says his illustration of what the hospital had done in the last several years showed it had made several $1 million worth of profit. Well, I want to know where that profit went. I think it's important that we know where it went. Why does the county have to bail him out now, or why do the taxpayers have to bail him out at this point? He says that the county's lost 40% of the revenues by losing doctors, and yet he says in the same on the same sheet that he only lost 2 to 3% of revenue. Doesn't make sense. The county has authorized $14 million worth of certificates of obligation. That's a $28 million debt, which is $14 million for every family of 4 in this county. And that's a lot of money. And what the public doesn't realize, or may not realize yet, and that is that all of the county's tax revenues are pledged against those certificates of obligation to benefit the hospital, which means that the county commissioners, the county judge, the various personnel of the county, including the county attorney, are stand behind the certificate of obligation holders in priority of payment. In other words, if those don't get paid first, then nobody gets paid. The county itself used up $1.4 million of its surplus in the prior fiscal year. And the county used up $1.7 million of its surplus in the current year. There's $3.1 million of surplus that has been used up by the county, and yet we're taking on $14 million or $28 million, whatever you want to call it, worth of debt for the benefit of the hospital. So the county itself is in poor financial shape and getting worse. I see no agreement lying between the hospital district or the hospital and the county. I don't know whether there's an agreement or not. If it's an oral agreement and you've begun to advance money on it, then that shouldn't be done that way. Maybe illegal. I
What are
don't
you
know.
talking about there? I mean, what
There is
kind
no
of
agreement.
what?
You referred to the fact that the hospital must begin payments in October of 10 next year. I have not seen any agreement to that effect by and between the county and the hospital. Not any. No written agreement. If you've advanced money against that, then you may have made an illegal transaction. I don't know whether you have or not, but I haven't seen anything to that effect. The Meridian thing, Rose Beck. To this day, nobody seems to know who Rose Beck is, and particularly they don't know who her partners in her partnership. What business does the Somervell County court have in putting money down into Meridian? Makes no sense. Are the taxpayers of Somervell County supposed to help out the taxpayers of Meridian in Bosque County? And what I suggested is if the hospital won't do it, then the county commissioners, I think, should do it. And that's, you should get somebody in that's a qualified, independent hospital consultant and have them go over the hospital completely and figure out what is in the world's going on and what the best future for the hospital is. Not take the word of one man and have an independent person looking at it. The other thing I say is get auditors in and have the auditors take a look at the entirety of the hospital operation, including 10 pages of material weaknesses in internal control, any of which could have the effect of making the financial statements false and misleading. Those things need to be done, and they need to be done immediately. We need to know whether construction that's going on at the hospital is what we need for the future of the hospital. If we have emergency rooms, 8 or 10 or whatever it is, who in the world's going to staff them? How in the world can we afford them? Those are very substantial things. I think there is a feeling of secrecy that goes on in the management of the hospital and this court. It needs to be, that atmosphere needs to be cleared up. There is a question as to the propriety of the relationship between one of the commissioners and the hospital, or one of the hospital's organization, as to whether or not he should be even discussing, much less voting, on the things that the hospital is doing. Anyhow, those are just a few of the points that I would make, and I would press you, and I intend to continue to press you to do something about the operations of the hospital, to get information that is backed up by facts, and then take appropriate action to get the weaknesses done and to make the hospital go forward on a paying basis with open records and open ideas.
Many of these issues you and I have already discussed, and evidently you've discounted, so I'm not going to take time to go over it again today.
Yes, sir, you have a choice of making a decision or sitting there and stonewalling.
I'm not stonewalling anything. You know, you brought it up. You probably put out more misinformation out there than anyone in this community.
You tell me what kind of misinformation is there.
Most of them.
Do what?
You're the one that asked me about an agreement between us and the, you didn't even know it was law, state law. You didn't even know it was state law how these are structured. But you put information out. You know that their profit was used to buy equipment, but you give.
Why do they have $1.7 million in cash set aside that's virtually hidden from this court and the public?
It's not hidden.
Walter, you need to do what I'm saying for your own good, for the good of the court.
Well, I'm glad that you're my instructor now.
Well, I'm glad to do it.
The taxpayers.
I'm proud to do it. You see how the vote came out. If that's not a referendum to do something, I don't know what is.